Our devotion today is from Isaiah chapter 62. Before we look at it, I want to remind you today to be in prayer for Jesse Smith. So, in chapter 62, we see God speaking more about what he is going to do for his people, talking about his salvation, explaining more about his love for them and how he's going to bless them. He begins by talking about how he's going to pull them up out of the place that they're in, and he's going to show them off, sort of, to hello, kitty cat, to the other nations. Um, his handiwork, right? How he has purified them and how he's made them righteous. The other nations are going to kind of be this light of the glory of God shining forth. One of the things that I love about this passage is he talks about how he's going to give them a new name. He's literally going to change their identity. He says in verse 2, you shall be called by a new name. And let's see, it even talks about what some of those names are. Down in verse 4, it says, you shall be called, my delight is in her. And your land will have a new name too. Your land will be called married. It starts to go into this imagery here. It even talks about as a bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall your God rejoice over you. This image, an imagery of God being married to his people, a husband that loves his bride and is rejoicing over her. And he said, you're going to be called, my delight is in you. We read that, reminds us of what it talks about in the New Testament. And I think this is true for God's people, and it's true for all of us who have joined with God in the new covenant through Jesus Christ. He's bought us for himself. We've become part of the bride of Christ when we belong to him. And we can say this of ourselves today. His delight is in us. He loves us dearly. He did everything to bring us to himself. And our identity has been changed. I think about how it's interesting. I don't know where it came from, but how when we do marriages, for the most part, nowadays we still have where the wife will have her name change to whatever her husband's is. I know not everybody does that, but that is a general practice. And I don't know when that started, but it reminds me of that here. We're talking about this name change, a change of identity for Israel. You're no longer going to be called forsaken. It says at one point, you're going to be known as my delight is in her. And you think about where Israel was, and they felt forsaken. God hadn't left them, but because of their sin and the place that they had gotten themselves, they felt forsaken. And they felt like the whole world looked down on them. Felt like they weren't worth much. What better place for us to be because we know, Lord, I need you. And it shows us. It's only because of God's love, right? Not because of anything that we did, that we earned it, but just because he chose to love us and to do all this for us. It's incredible. It goes on at the end, verse 12, where it talks about some more names that they're going to be known by. He's changing their identity. And they shall be called the holy people, the redeemed of the Lord. And you shall be called sought out, a city not forsaken. I love that term when he says you'll be called sought out. And that makes a lot of sense when we read the New Testament, when we see the great shepherd who came looking for the lost sheep to seek and to save the lost. You'll be called sought out. And God meant that literally. I'm seeking after you. I'm running after you. You realize today, if you know Christ, God has changed your identity. You are not forsaken, and you're not what the lies of the world try to tell you you are. You are a child of God. You're sought after. You are where his pleasure, his delight is in you. Remind yourself to tell yourself the truth today. I'm thankful for this passage, and I hope God has spoke something to you out of it. And if he has, leave the rest of us a message, and let's remember to minister to one another. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.